Well, thank you very much for being here. If this was a meal, I'm kind of either the appetizer or the salad for the main course that's on my right over here. So I'm going to be talking a little bit about the situation of international students in our state, their talent, who's here, and then I think some of the larger immigration issues are going to be coming out with Steve and Karen. So in the United States, there right now are over 800,000 international students. And I want to kind of look at statistically nationwide as well as their economic contribution. So the Institute of International Education has a formula for this, and the estimated contribution into the U.S. economy for people coming here to study. Education is an export industry. Education is an export industry. So $24 billion, there's 27,000 international students in the state of Michigan. We estimate their contribution is $823 million. And at MSU, there's 7,161 international students from 130 different countries. And we are estimating very conservatively, I might add, that is a $250 million into the greater Lansing economy. And the reason I say very conservatively is we're only counting international students. And we also have about 1,000 visiting international faculty who are more likely to have families, who are more likely to consume more in everything that goes on. The largest sending countries are China, Korea, and India. But we do have lots of different countries. One of the things we're proudest of right now is the way that we're bringing in African students. The numbers aren't anywhere near what these other numbers are, but isn't that the metaphor for Africa and the world anyway, I think, in some ways. What's an international student? Okay. An international student is somebody who's in the U.S. temporarily. They're a non-immigrant, temporarily for the purpose of study. They've come here because they want a degree. And when they apply for a student visa at the U.S. consul, they have to demonstrate that they are not going to immigrate to the United States. How does a 17, 18-year-old student tell somebody that after 4 years of earning a bachelor's degree or a master's degree after that, that they intend to return to their country? But that's the burden of proof that is on. They're guilty before they're innocent. Then they have to demonstrate that they have sufficient financial support to meet all their educational and living expenses. And students from certain countries and students from certain disciplines will also go through security clearances. And I'll talk a little bit about the metaphors for international students, and security is an important thing for our industry as well. When you think of international students, what immediately comes to your mind? Okay, here is what I think comes to your mind. At least I hope, at least one of these, if not all of them. They're the best and the brightest academic talent. And in some of our science areas, some of our colleges of engineering programs, we absolutely rely on their scientific talent. It's very important to us. They also create opportunities to learn about the rest of the world. Friendship with an international student can be transformational. And anybody who's really had a friend can have that aha moment where they've never thought about that before. And all of a sudden you begin to have a global perspective, and they present opportunities for us to learn in a very personal and firsthand way. And we think that's very important. We can have international experiences here. They don't have to go abroad to have an international experience. And we need to engage our students and be part of that during the time that they're students at Michigan State. Possible business networking, and helps us make friends in the world. How many world leaders have we educated? How many Michigan alums? The head of the Forestry Institute in Indonesia was a host of mine a couple of years ago in Indonesia. We have very, very influential people in lots of different places. And some of these people get to know us. They're friendly to us. Certainly some of the jobs that they're bringing back to Michigan, I'm not going to go into the stories because I don't have enough time, but it really does help us make business connections in the world. And some of them come from very influential families, and they might want to invest here. That is another level of something to think about. They're economic exports. We've already talked about how much they contribute to the local economy. And here's the one, it's never as fun to talk about, but there is also a perception that they are risks to national security. They might be here to do us harm, okay? And so since 9/11, my office, how do we spend our time in an office like mine? And there's an electronic reporting system in which we report all international students every semester to the Department of Homeland Security. What's their local address? Are they full-time students as they promised to be? So this is part of the new age, and we've settled into the new normal. So it's not initially, post 9/11, I think we were dreading how we would spend our time, but all the idealism of what international education is still there. And we are accountable to the U.S. government, so this is actually quite a good thing, and actually the system works. Lansing is a globally friendly community. I want to be complimentary. I've been in Lansing now about 13 years, and not every university has the same jumping off points that we have with our local community. We've been very fortunate in that way. So 52 years ago, CVIP, Community Volunteers for International Programs, was started as a group of faculty wives who were mending coats for African students for the winter. And they have since that time morphed into 9 different committees. They have a speakers bureau that goes out to local Rotary clubs and high schools to help internationalize our community. They have a lending center in which welcoming new students come. They don't have to go to Myers to spend all their first budget on buying plates and blankets and everything else. These are all done by volunteers. And we have a friendship program in which we have American Home Hospitality. They are fabulous. And so by the time that I met Steve Tabachman and Karen a few years ago, we had a long tradition of being connected in our community, because we want, while they're here, we want the international students not only to feel welcome, but we have the opportunity to learn from them, and that's been going on for a long time. A few years ago, the mayor of East Lansing contacted me and said, what else can we do to be welcoming to our international students? So East Lansing has a huge impact. So we started this program called East Lansing Welcomes the World, in which in the fall, a few weeks after school starts, the library opens up the doors, the mayor, the chief of police, everybody, all the important dignitaries are there, and we invite all the international students and scholars to be there as just a welcoming place. And so we feel terrific support from our community leaders there. We work at it, it's important, and I think we've done a good job of educating them on not only the impact, but the stress. It's hard to be an international student. It's hard to be a long ways away from home. There's all kinds of issues that are going on, and the more people that can be involved to support them and be involved with them is a very good thing. Ginny Haas, who many of you may know, has started a stakeholders group a few years ago, in which the local community leaders from the courts to, let's face it, not all international students are saintly. Some of them are driving cars. Some of them, those cars are getting pulled over. And the courts are now dealing with people whose English is not as strong as others. How do we be a globally friendly community? And they have to do their job. We understand that. We want to support them. And we're talking actively about all the different ways that Greater Lansing can be a globally friendly community, which includes Global Lansing. So we've now, chaired by the Lansing Economic Area Partnership, there is a group of community-wide stakeholders, people who are renting apartments to students, people who are in city government, in lots of different ways to think about what are the transportation needs of the community, of the international students. Not all of them have cars. What are all the different ways that we can be a globally friendly community? So they have social and cultural connections. Certainly English as a second language is a very big deal for our students and for their families, and as you'll hear about refugees and other types of people who are from other societies who are in our community, how can we help them integrate better and be part of our community? English is a huge part of it. Transportation, health issues. We've had students who certainly get to know Sparrow Hospital better than we'd prefer. It's no rap against Sparrow Hospital, but now that they're there, how well do our students understand health insurance? How well do they understand how do we make health decisions in our community? And it's complicated, and it's much easier to explain the infield fly rule of baseball to a group of traveling Germans than it is to explain health insurance to international people. Healthcare is one of our bigger challenges and if you understand the infield fly rule, I'd really like to talk to you later. Employment on a student visa. Okay, so they have many restrictions. They're here temporarily. They have to have an address abroad to go back to. So what is it that they're allowed to do? Certainly the issue of taking jobs from qualified American workers is a big topic. It always comes up. I want to put it right out there. Here's what international students can do. They're allowed to work 20 hours a week on campus. They can work off campus in a job related to their field of study. They can get an internship. It's called curricular practical training. They have to be here a year before they can do that, but there are ways that international students can be connected in our community for experiential learning opportunities. Following graduation on a student visa, they can work for 1 year on what they call optional practical training. And it's a continuation of the student visa. It's not changing off their visa status. And a few years ago, the government allowed a 17-month extension for people who are in STEM disciplines, science, technology, engineering, and math. So students in those fields can get up to 29 months of work experience in a job related to their major following their graduation. And this is a big deal in terms of all the different benefits that somebody has from another country. The law allows international students to own a business, but they can't work for it, because that would violate their work restrictions on the student visa. So it's a very peculiar dynamic as we're encouraging people and we're seeing people opening up businesses. But in terms of my job is to make sure that they don't violate their status. We want to keep them in status. This is a big deal. So it's kind of a funny thing. Special topics, terrorism and international students. Okay, 1979, President Carter wanted to know where all the Iranian students were when the embassy was taken over by students, and they didn't know. And that began a longer process of having the U.S. government look into international students as risks to national security. From there became a reporting system for universities to report on international students, and we thought that was kind of subsiding until 1993 when the first World Trade Center bombing happened, and one of the people who perpetrated that was on a student visa. So beginning in 1996, there became a mandate to have an electronic reporting system. And in 2001, after 9/11, we now have an electronic reporting system in which the database is kept on all the international students in the United States on F and J visas. And this is one of the ways that we report to the United States government. It has changed the use of how an office like mine spends our time. In a former life, we used to spend time helping people from other countries adjust and understand and be successful. And now it's much more of a compliance type of operation. It is what it is. It's the new normal. And again, it does work. Students are still going about their business, earning degrees, and that's a very good thing. And I do feel accountable to the government. The government audits and increased security in the last couple of years. We're seeing much more of time that it takes for the Department of Labor to look into who is employable and a lot of other things. So the larger environment of the U.S. federal government is they are applying more scrutiny to anybody from another country who's in the United States to work. Talent in the United States, interestingly, 30% of all the Nobel laureates are foreign-born people at U.S. universities. So it just shows you the talent from abroad that's coming here. Think of Einstein. Think of some other people who have made world-class contributions to our society, and what welcoming signals do we have for them? And this would be another, just a little factoid. And when do we want them to stay and when do we want them to go? We want them to pay out-of-state tuition. We want them to be here if they're STEM talented. But then at the end of their stay, they're supposed to return home. And this is the life of an international student, and it is stressful. I think a lot of people like it here. They would like to stay. Some miss their families. They want to go home. We see the full bell curve of everything in an office like mine. And supporting mobility around the world. I would say the U.S. immigration law is passed in the early 1950s, is a relic of the Cold War, and it really hasn't kept up with the mobile world that we now live in. And we want people to cross borders. We want to have them be friends in the world. We want all this, and the clunkiness of the U.S. immigration system is a challenge for us. We're trying to get people to cross the borders and be friendly here. The Global Talent Retention Initiative is part of Governor Snyder's vision for economic development and to retain talented people in the state of Michigan. How do we retain the talent as opposed to have brain drain like a third world country and have people educated at Michigan, Michigan State, Wayne State, and then they go to San Francisco, Chicago, New York, and other places? How do we keep them here? International students are a part of that. And the Global Michigan Initiative wants to make Michigan more immigrant friendly because in the case of international students are study in STEM disciplines at about 40%. American students study in STEM disciplines about 13%. So the talent, who is it that is likely to innovate? Who is likely to start jobs, create jobs, and other things? International students are a huge opportunistic moment for us. And the governor has done, I think, a very visionary thing in creating Global Michigan. So they're job creators. And again, I want to repeat this issue of taking jobs from qualified American workers and put that off the table. There are not enough qualified Americans to do a lot of these jobs. We are lucky to have them here. We want their talent here. And that's the central piece of what we're here to talk about today, really. How can we keep talented international students in the U.S. when the law is stuck in the past? So part of the Global Michigan Initiative has become GTRI. You saw the video. The Global Talent Retention Initiative was something that I've been part of from its beginning, and the goal is to educate employers in ways that they can hire international students, either through internships temporarily or more on a full-time basis, to demystify the immigration policies, because there are ways that they can do things, and we want to be optimistic about that. And the goal is to brand Michigan uniquely. When you think of immigration in Arizona, you think of immigration in some other states, and they have certainly different issues on the Mexican border and other states, but I think the branding of Michigan as an immigrant-friendly place is visionary. And I think it's fabulous, and I strongly support it.